All right. Today is an AMA episode. It's the third AMA episode that I've done so far on this podcast, and it's been growing each time. I think the first time I did this, I got like 5 questions, not very many. So the podcast has been growing. I got a lot of amazing questions. I'm going to do my very best to get to all of them. I'm going to cap this podcast episode around an hour in, so you don't just hear me blabbering on and on. I got my phone on airplane mode, and I'm ready to go. So this time we had questions from all over the world. Questions from Kenya to Wisconsin to Poland and Canada. It was amazing to hear from so many diverse voices, but then also to see the overlapping themes and the things that you're struggling with. It's the same things that I struggled with growing up, some things that I'm still trying to figure out and learn myself. So we'll see if we can't answer these questions together. To give you a little bit of a preview, here are some of the questions that we're working with on this episode. People asked, when did you get into filmmaking? What does my workout routine look like? What's my strategy for creating meaningful YouTube videos? What items can't I live without? Why haven't Natalie and I gotten married yet? It's a little personal. I guess I asked for personal questions, so totally cool. No offense taken there. And somebody asked me about my workout routine. Did I say that already? I don't know. I guess I just really want to talk about my workout routine. I might have said it twice, but anyway, I think this is going to be a good one. Let's do this like little intro roll. My name is Matt Diavella. I'm the filmmaker behind Minimalism, and then after that, we'll get into the AMA here. Let's do it. You're listening to The Ground Up Show, a podcast that inspires creatives to make meaningful content and pursue their passions. My name's Matt Diavella, and I'm a filmmaker best known for the Netflix documentary Minimalism. And I'm sitting down with creators to talk about their process, the lessons they've learned, and how to make an impact. AMA, let's do it. Here we are. First question is a video. It's from Sean Lee.
Hey Matt, my name is Sean. I would consider myself a filmmaker and YouTuber just like yourself, and I was really inspired about how you got out of debt completely in 4 years. 100 grand, that's just insane. One point that you made in that video though is that you have to make more money to pay this debt. So in my efforts to do the same, my question for you is, how do you market yourself as a freelance filmmaker to make some additional money while trying to maintain a full-time job to pay the bills? And a second question, if I can, do you mind talking about your Sony picture profiles as well as your color grading process? Your videos always look great, and just want to know how you achieve that. Thanks. Take care.
Thank you. So I'm gonna go with the low-hanging fruit there. The color grading stuff. One thing to mention is that it's always evolving. It's always changing. I might look back at my videos and actually not like them in a year. I might be, oh no, that too green or I don't like the colors on them. So I think our tastes evolve and change over time. So I think it's okay to be. It's totally fine to be okay with that. I personally use a LUT first, so I got a couple from Color Grading Central. I think it's colorgradingcentral.com. They sell LUTs there, and I think it's like a Fujifilm LUT. I just went through, there's a bunch of them, and I just kind of went through each of them and found which one I liked. I usually put like a 65 to 70% blend on it, so it's almost like too much if it's 100%. And then I'll just tweak with regular contrast, my dark, shadows, my darks, and my whites to kind of bring it into a point that I like. So that's just a real kind of simple. I'll probably do a video later on really getting into detail about that. But to answer your main question, I think you have to try to find a way to make filmmaking your full-time job. And you may not actually be making a lot of money at it in the very beginning, and likely you won't. I remember my first year, I was in college, so I was kind of lucky that I had that backdrop to start. I think I made like $8,000. Now, most people unless you're living with your parents, most people can't survive off of $8,000 a year. So you can do it in your spare time. I would say try to do weddings. They help because they're usually on the weekends. If you can start doing that, if you can build up to a point where you're starting to make money, there's going to be that point though where you need to make a leap, where you need to say, all right, I need to actually jump ship, and I can't, simultaneously do this full-time job as well as try to be a full-time creative, because it's just going to be way too much. But I would say take whatever jobs you can in the beginning. Say yes to everything. Do weddings, bar mitzvahs, whatever it takes to be able to dedicate yourself to it, because you're going to be building up your craft. But then obviously don't neglect the business side of things and actually the making money, because that's what's going to get you to be able to do that full-time. So I would say read up and really dedicate yourself to honing both of those elements, both the creative and then actually the business side of it. So I've got some homework for you. One of the books that really helped to inspire me early on when I first got started out was The Art of Nonconformity by Chris Guillebeau. Chris Guillebeau, amazing author and entrepreneur. He's traveled to every country on the planet. He's a world traveler. He is super inspiring, and he's never really taken that traditional path. So reading his book kind of it gave me this sense of, oh, I can do this. Like, there are other people out there that were able to make this work. And like I said, it might be tough in the beginning. It might be more challenging. It's going to be more challenging in the very beginning than it will be at any other point in the process. I can tell you, I worked harder. I put in more hours very early on. I took jobs that were $100 to $400 per project where I was making nothing on my hourly rate. But I was able to build up my craft. I was able to keep working. And also don't overlook the personability element. Like, people are hiring you not just based on your skill, but what else you bring to the table. Are you a joy to work with? Do people really want to actually collaborate with you? Those things are really important. And it sounds like you have a really great personality, and you're a really easygoing person. So I think if you can bring that through, then that'll help those people, those first clients, spread the word and talk about you and say, oh man, you got to hire Sean. Like, he makes the greatest video and he's amazing to work with. Let's get to the next question here. This is from Jason Chimuela. I was wondering what kind of filmmaking or video production experience you had prior to making Minimalism. From the look of your kit, by the way, if you don't know, Minimalism is a documentary I made, a Netflix doc. So from your kit and the look of your film, I'm assuming you had some real experience. I don't know too many hobbyists that have a Canon C-series camera and L glass sitting around. Those are the lenses that I use. Apologies if you've answered this one already. I've watched your Making Minimalism series and heard a handful of podcast episodes, but haven't heard you come across this one yet, Jason. So I've been a filmmaker for pretty much my entire life, in various forms. So I first took an interest making horror films with my older brother and sister and my cousin. We would make these really corny, bloody thrashers with my parents' VHS tape. And that was kind of my first introduction to it. It was just so exciting. It was so fun. And just the creating of it it just came naturally to me. But, it wasn't like hit the ground running. And then I started, shooting weddings when I was 12. But I just never stopped tinkering. Like, it was always there. It was always an interest that I had. And even throughout high school, I was in the film and TV classes that they had there, the editing classes. There was maybe 4 or 5 of them. I was very fortunate to have a school that had a really great video program. We had, I think it was 13 computers with Mac Pros. So I got to learn Final Cut 7 while I was still in high school. And the videos that I was making at the time, they were just gag videos. I was just trying to make my friends laugh. I was trying to make me laugh. I was trying to make my teacher laugh. I just found joy in actually creating and and bringing my personality into the videos. So that's kind of how it started out. And then, in college, I was like, what am I going to do? Like, the only thing I like is video. The only thing that I'm really drawn to is filmmaking. So it was kind of a no-brainer. And then I just kept it up. But I think the biggest thing was that I didn't do it. I didn't just do it during classes or whatever was on the syllabus. That's when I did the video editing. I actually stuck through and I put in the time outside of class. I saved up money working at a grocery store to buy a professional camera, to buy a MacBook Pro, to buy Final Cut. Okay, I'm pretty sure I stole Final Cut when I was in college, but you get the point. I really invested in myself, and I invested primarily my time into learning this craft because I loved it. And so, eventually it just grew from there to the point where I was doing freelance work, worked with a lot of clients, and then made enough money that I felt comfortable stepping away from the client work for a little while to say, hey, I got a story I want to tell about minimalism and simple living. I want to get into it. So yeah, I had some gear. I wasn't just a hobbyist. I was definitely a professional filmmaker heading into this film. Let's see here. Question from Kevin Fisher. Hey, Matt, I was wondering if you had any advice for carving out time and space to do creative work in a shared apartment. I share a small one-bedroom apartment with my partner, and my desk is just in a corner in the living room. I often find that I can't focus if my partner is in the same room, even if she is not bothering me and doing her own thing on the couch, and she's just doing her own thing on the couch. I'm considering just waiting until she goes to bed, but then my sleep would likely suffer. Yeah, that sounds like a terrible idea. Have you dealt with similar challenges trying to get work done in your apartment? Nah, I haven't personally dealt with those kind of challenges because most of the time I work from home. Sometimes I work from an office space, but generally I do a lot of my work and my editing from home. And Natalie, she works from her office. So I do wake up early. I try to get my work done early so then we can spend time together afterwards. And I don't, it's always kind of, I don't want to create that friction where I'm working and she kind of wants to talk about her day, so I try to make that space so we can have that time together. Even if we're not doing something actively together, it's just nice to separate the two. Though I've been in that situation before. I actually lived with my sister recently, right after I graduated college, for about 4 or 5 months. And we were both creatives, entrepreneurs, doing our own thing, both working from home. And it was really challenging to just be there in that same environment all the time. So my saving grace were noise canceling headphones, and the same exact headphones that I have on right now. They helped because it just, first of all, even if they're not even on, it's just people know, oh, Matt's working. Matt's doing his thing. He's got his headphones on. I shouldn't bother him. Sometimes I'll be working too. Like, there are times, obviously, when I'm working and Natalie's home. Sometimes I work on the weekends, and I'll kind of hear her saying something. I could ignore her if I want. Sometimes I say, "Oh, what'd you say?" And pulling back one of the ears, but she's like, "Oh no, totally fine, not important." Because I think when you're in the same room as somebody, there's a tendency to just say something when you otherwise would just be alone in your own thoughts. So that's one thing that's helped me. I think it should probably start with a conversation between you and your partner. You should just talk about what you're trying to do creatively. If you can't find time to do it during in the early morning or during your work hours, then I think it's a conversation to say, hey, I really want to focus on these things. Can you go in the bedroom and leave me alone at my desk so I can do some work? I think there's a lot of ways that you can get around it, but headphones certainly helped me. All right, so we have a question here from June. What was the motivation behind starting the podcast? And I thought to myself, this was shortly after making Minimalism. I thought to myself, what would I do if I had all the money in the world? If money wasn't even a question, what would I create? It's hard to think from that perspective because so much of the time our decisions are based around money. We have bills, we have rent to pay, we have expenses to cover. But I really put myself in that position and I said, if I made all the money in the world, if I had all the money right now, what would I be doing with my life? And it may sound trivial to say, it was making a podcast, but I wanted to create my own original work. And a podcast was definitely the one form and the one medium that I was attracted to pursuing. So I decided to do it, to make that transition. And it was scary. It was really scary in the beginning. I remember having conversations with Natalie where it was like, just a week into having this idea, like, I think I'm going to start a podcast. Like, I just don't know. I was feeling so much doubt. I was truly nervous to put my work out there because I had this like fear of failure, of looking like an idiot, of not knowing what I was doing. But Natalie was just like, you got to do it. You just got to start putting your stuff out there. Like, the right path. So having her there to support me was super helpful. I think it was also just following all this advice that I've gotten over all the years and all the books that I've read about just start, just go, just get into it. It's the same advice that I followed early on when I was a filmmaker. Except I was now putting my voice out there and my person to be likely criticized. What I found out was that nobody gave a shit. Nobody cared. Nobody was even listening. In the beginning, nobody was even there to criticize me, which is great. Because then I just built confidence with each one, and I was able to learn with such a low bar. There was such a low bar that I didn't have this pressure of like thousands and thousands of people listening to me. I just wanted to create something that I enjoy, that maybe my friends would like, and maybe an audience of 50 people would enjoy, and then go from there. So that was my motivation to get into it, and it's been amazing to see it grow and to hear from you guys, and to now do this podcast AMA where I'm getting people asking questions from all over the world. Like, do you know how much of a trip that is? And when I see these videos of you guys sending in questions and it's very personal to me, and it means the world. And I'm just so glad I started, and I'm so glad that I stuck through with it. And we got a question from Lee Ann. Where did you and your girlfriend meet? You're an adorable couple. Thank you so much, Leanne from Wisconsin. It's very nice of you to say. Question on, so I didn't even answer it. Where did you and your girlfriend meet? We met on Tinder. That's right. We met on Tinder. We swipe. It was love at first swipe, I like to say. And yeah, I mean, like, she was from Australia. She had been living in New York City for about 2 months, maybe 3 months. And then we met. And, it just kind of went from there. It was just, we had that instant connection and chemistry, and we just said, all right, this is, it was pretty serious. It got pretty serious pretty quick because we were like, she only was planning on being there for a year. So we were like, all right, well, we're going to have to talk about our future and where this is going. And she, it was nerve wracking for me. I'm sure for her as well. But I was like, I didn't know if she was going to stay. And that was kind of the hardest part. But it didn't take long before we realized that this was something that it was worth working for and working on. Leanne's got a question here about minimalism. I've pared down my belongings over the years, but I am not finished yet. I'm working through the final items that I kept because I should keep them, whether it's family items from relatives that have passed down or books that I think I should read. How do you push through the final 20% of stuff and get to a point where you're happy with a few items left in a category? I'm trying to find the motivation to finish. I find, for me personally, like, I always have at least 5 to 10% things in my house or things that I own that I just don't use because our lives are always changing. So, like, I have these boots that were at a lot of value when I was in New York, and throughout the winters I would wear them very frequently, and like big thick socks. And now I still have those things, and I'm like, well, am I going to need those boots when I go home for the winter? If we take a trip somewhere, might be worth holding on to. So I think it's fine to have a few things, and 5 to 10% of things that or 20%, as you said, that you don't actually use. I don't think that's a big deal, because for most people it's the opposite. Most people have 80% of the stuff in their house they don't use, they don't touch, they never look at, and they don't realize it is even there. They forgot they even had it. So I think that you're on the right on the right track, and I wouldn't get too stressed out or anxious about the stuff. The whole point is to move past the stuff, right? It's to not let the stuff be, a point of your discontent. So if the stuff is causing anxiety and stress that you kind of want to get down to the point where you just use only what you own, then I think you're kind of missing the point. The point is look past the stuff, focus on the experiences, relationships in your life, focus on finding work that you're passionate about, a life that you're passionate about, and then the 20%, it's not a big deal. That it's just in a closet somewhere. This is Kasia from Poland.
Hi, Matt. I was wondering if you have any advice on introducing the values of minimalism and its benefits to your very not minimalist family. Thank you.
How do you introduce the benefits of minimalism to your very not minimalist family? I feel like my family is pretty minimalist, being that it's just Natalie and myself. It's just the two of us. But, I think the main thing here is that you can only show them how it helps you. But everybody's different. Natalie has seen that minimalism helps me, and it adds value to my life, and she still chooses not to become a minimalist. And I'm not going to try to brainwash her or try to manipulate her or try to figure out a way that I could otherwise trick her into becoming a minimalist, because I love her for who she is. I accept her for who she is as a non-minimalist, which is totally cool. But I think it comes down to the fact that we both have that mutual respect for each other and our own personal lives and lifestyles that we're able to make it work. One of the biggest things in terms of letting go is actually letting go of control and letting go of this desire to want to kind of, change the people that are around you. So if you can let go of that, that's probably, definitely a step in the right direction. We got a question here from Hidden Mystery, which is the greatest name that I've seen yet on this podcast. Hidden says, I'm currently a senior at the University of San Francisco, and I hope to one day help others through going into the field of medicine. I'm currently in a stressful process of finding work post-graduation and studying for my medical test. One thing that I continue to struggle with due to stress is maintaining a work-life balance. School seems to stress me out, and this causes a cascade of binging and overconsumption that I feel has taken over not only my personal life, but as well as my relationship to both my family and friends. I seem to lose sight in what I think is really valuable and important to my life and well-being. So my question to you is, how do you maintain a good work-life balance? If you could touch on this, that would be awesome. Nonetheless, look forward to hearing the podcast. So I think it's okay to be unbalanced every once in a while. Sometimes, we're more aligned than others. But I think you have to first get straight with who you are, what your values are, so you have that kind of center point. So if you do come out of balance, if maybe you're not going to the gym as much as you would like and you want to come back to going to the gym, then you can kind of pull yourself into alignment. But you have to know where your center is. So when you go off course, you can come back. And just be okay with it, Be okay with not being perfect. Be okay that, today you may have things completely under control and you're stress-free, and tomorrow something happens that you can't control. And maybe you get a little bit stressed out. I think that's okay. But in the long run, you want to be able to look back and say, okay, I think I spent enough time this month with my family and friends, on my schoolwork, on my personal relationships, on my passions and my hobbies. I think if you can do that, then that's a pretty damn good way to live. Okay, so this is a question here from Courtney. How do you suggest someone who's newly living on their own to discuss minimalist values with their roommates and family? I was personally unable to have my family understand where I was coming from when they were trying to help me set up my apartment by both giving me and buying me things that I didn't need and I still haven't used, that now they won't let me get rid of. That's Courtney from Canada, from Newfoundland. That's funny. I think the one thing is that people can't make you keep stuff. Like if you want to get rid of the stuff, you can definitely get rid of it, especially if those people aren't living with you. I think it sometimes can be uncomfortable to say no, And sometimes it's harder to say no and to turn things down than it is to say yeah. It's very easy to say yes, accept things into our life, and that's what we all do. It's just, like that free t-shirt cannon gun that they shoot out at halftime in basketball games. People like go crazy over free shit. Everybody wants free stuff. So it's just kind of, people find it kind of strange and weird when you're like, nah, I don't really want the stuff. I'm good, thanks. I think generally, if you don't have to have the conversation, then you don't have to have it. Like, I think like my favorite vegans are the ones that I find out they're vegan after a year or 2 years of knowing them. I'm like, I didn't know that. Like, it comes up when you go out to eat, and sometimes it will naturally come up into conversation. But for the most part, it's like, these are just, ideas and values that you hold and a way that you live that, yeah, people might take notice and ask questions, but I think generally you don't have to be the first one to bring it up. Although when it does come up, I find like they're interesting conversations to have. And I think that's one of the reasons that minimalism did well and it resonated, was because half of the people that watched it probably didn't like it. Half of the people were like, no, not for me, if not more. People were like, minimalism, not really for me. But then it kind of creates that discussion and that debate about these things and the things that we bring into our life. So, if somebody wants to give you something and you don't want it, you can accept it, thanks, and then you could always give it away later. I have done that myself. I haven't. If you're listening to this podcast and you've given me something, I totally still have it. What do we got here? We got a video here from Parker Thompson.
Hey Matt, my name is Parker, and I'm new to filmmaking, but I've been a minimalist for a number of years now, and I've been using YouTube a lot to learn about filmmaking. And as I find content, sometimes I get frustrated when I surf through clickbait content or just stuff that's watered down. And watching your videos, I really find that there's value first. That I feel like that is your top priority, and I really, really appreciate it. And as a filmmaker now, I'm also getting interested in starting my own YouTube channel. So my question for you is, what's your validation process when you make content for YouTube? How do you decide what's valuable? Thanks, Matt.
Great question. I think that's going to be my new slogan, value first. Matt Diavella, value first. That's a great question, Parker. I love it. Kind of gets down to just, I think I want to get into my creative process here and how I go about kind of choosing the videos that I want to make for my channel. YouTube has definitely been I've seen the biggest growth from by far out of anything. It's just kind of taken off lately. And I think it does come down to the process and how I go about actually creating the videos and the actual content that I'm creating. So I get ideas randomly. These ideas just like, pop into your head. You watch something, you see something, or maybe I've had this idea brewing for a long period of time, and I'll write that idea down when it comes into my head. I've got this page just filled up with all these video ideas, and then I will go through that list and I pick out the ones that are most exciting to me. Like, which ones to me seem like the most interesting or the most exciting, the ones that I really want to create. And then I'll think about that video and I'll think about, how can I make this interesting? How can I make this entertaining? How can I, bring the value out of this? Like, what do I really want to get across? I made a video called The New Normal, and it was simply about hedonic adaptation. Which is this idea that when we buy something new, our expectations and our desires will rise with it, or we get a raise in salary, our expectations and our desires, they rise along with that increase in status to the point where it actually doesn't make us happier in the long run. We come down to this level state of fulfillment and contentment. So like there's definitely like a dry way to go about making that video. There's a way to just present the facts. I could just read a Wikipedia page about hedonic adaptation and that's it. But I wanted to get a little bit creative. I mean, that's like the fun part of creating videos as well, is like, it's just this blank canvas that you can create and you can put anything within it. And for me, I personally, I think humor is one of the best ways to tell a story, or like just even being weird or a little bit kind of offbeat. So for me, I was like, all right, what's like a weird thing that like people might think about, that might bring into their life, that's like seems so mundane and so boring, but when you're thinking about buying it, you're like, you think about all these reasons why it may help improve your life and it may change your life. So I open up the video talking about this toaster and how you're like, oh, well, I mean, it's got 4 slots in case you want to toast 4 slices of bread. I'm laughing now because I talked to my brother after he watched that video, and he's like, dude, I've got the same toaster. We were thinking about paring down and getting a small toaster because who needs 4 to be able to toast 4 slices of bread at once? It's just massive. It takes up so much room. But anyway, it was like this idea of kind of going through and talking about that, making it playful, being like, this toaster is going to change your fucking life. And then also, being a little bit edgy too, not being afraid to curse, just being yourself, and letting the actual story come out. But obviously, I've been trying to put humor into every video I do and be a little bit weird or a little bit funny or crack jokes, whatever it is. Because one, that's just a kind of a part of my personality and who I am, and that I really enjoy adding those into the video. But I think it's just about creating great content. Like value, a lot of times people can get caught up in value and say, oh, add value to people's lives. Just focus on adding value. Value isn't just like numbers or like, here's a thing I learned. Here's a fact that I know that you now know. Value is like entertainment. It's funny. It's not like Parker was saying, it's like sometimes you watch these videos and it's clickbait, but then that's one thing, but then when you actually click on it, it's just the message doesn't deliver. It doesn't make you feel good afterwards. You don't feel like, oh my god, like I need to find out who this person was that made this. I think when you take pride in what you do and you're passionate about your work and you really want to actually give people either a good time, make them laugh, create something that gets them to think a little bit deeper. Those are all different ways that you can add value to somebody else's life through YouTube videos. So Parker, good luck with your YouTube channel and the videos that you're making. Really appreciate you sending that question in. Adrian says, dude, you're amazing. Thank you. I appreciate that. As a professional photographer, I often find myself going down a rabbit hole of blogs, tutorials, videos, Pinterest inspiration, interviews, email newsletters, etc. Well, you're welcome for just adding onto the pile. The list is endless. They're genuinely great resources. My Safari browser window is usually about 15 tabs open at any given time. So unminimal of me. I really struggle to prioritize and stay focused on what really matters. I feel myself getting pulled in every direction and losing sight of what matters most. My question is, have you ever experienced this? And if so, how do you deal with this barrage of information? When I first started out, that I feel like that's what my life was like. I was just drowning in content. But I think there comes a point when you can only read so many books about entrepreneurship before you decide, I'm going to start a business. Reading these books and these other resources on it are exciting, and like they really give you a boost of energy when you're reading them. And I think they're actually really important for helping to give you guidelines for the direction in which you should be heading, the kind of material you should be creating, as long as you're finding like resources that are positive and have the right moral grounding in them. But eventually you're going to learn so much more by actually getting started and doing the work and actually taking photos and creating an art gallery or whatever it is, if you're a photographer. But it's definitely like the don't lose sight of the actual creation. And that, that's one thing. Like now lately I spend way more time creating than I do consuming. And I think I probably should spend a little bit more time consuming and listening to podcasts and kind of relaxing, because I do love my work and I do work a lot. I put a lot of time and a lot of energy into this stuff. So I've kind of tipped the scale in the other direction there, where like I said previously, it's about balance and kind of finding what fits for you. But if you're not creating enough, then that's probably going to be your biggest area of growth. It's not going to be going through all those 15 tabs on your Safari browser. Next question. Mathilde Levy. How do you find your purpose? I can't think out of the box, but I know the safe path, college and the typical 9-to-5 job. and it's not for me. How do you find your passion? How do you find what you want to do? And actually, I think that probably comes down to like, how do you find your passion and how do you turn that into something where you can make money from? I think you should probably start with interests. Start with what do you enjoy doing? What do you like doing? And then think to yourself, has anybody made money doing this? This is my friend Joshua Fields Milburn from the Minimalist gave this advice. So it's like, has anybody ever made money as a writer before? Has anybody ever made a living as a filmmaker or a photographer? Do I like those things, or can I take an interest in them and learn how to create? Do I like that process? If so, then you could turn that passion into a business and you can actually make money from it. Sometimes it's just an interest. Sometimes you just like these things. Maybe rock climbing, some people can get sponsors and can be, and turn it into a business. Maybe more challenging to do that than another path. So that's definitely something to keep in mind. But if other people are doing it, chances are you can also do it yourself. Question from Connie. Why aren't you and Natalie married? What a good question. And very personal and invasive. No, it's not invasive. I don't really care. We are not married yet. We've been dating for like 3 years, so we haven't been dating for that long. But we've talked about our future. We've talked about marriage, and we do have plans to get engaged. So stay tuned for that one. But that's not yet. Pascal. So when is Casey Neistat going to be on the podcast? Much love, Pascal. That's a great question. I would love to get Casey Neistat on the podcast. I don't know Casey Neistat personally. So if you guys know Casey Neistat, feel free to put in a good word. We'll see. I mean, as this thing grows, as the podcast grows, more doors open, and then, people are more willing to come talk on your show. It's one of those things where like, you can't get everybody that you'd ever want when you only, have a certain amount of downloads per month. If I'm getting millions of downloads, then it's a little bit more interesting for people. If he's got a thing that he's putting out and, he's doing a podcast run. I don't think he does a ton of interviews, but it's one of those things that would love to have him on if I could make it work. Maybe you guys should reach out. If you guys want to reach out to Casey Neistat, just be like, yo, go on Matt's podcast. He's a filmmaker that I like and I think you'll like as well. So we'd love to get him on. Robert. Hey there, Matt. Over the past few years, I've ventured into minimalism and becoming debt-free, nearly there. My struggle is committing to things that I want to do, guitar, writing, and outdoor activities. I've been married for over 30 years. Wow, congratulations. And we allow each other plenty of time alone to do such things. She enjoys other activities. Yes, opposites do attract one another. How do you commit to things that you enjoy that are not work related, Robert? So it's right there in the question. You have to make the commitment. And I think of it like as an investment, and like you know that you should be committed to investing and you should put your money and not all in one place. Don't put all your investments into one basket, because if you put it into, say, one company, then what happens if that company crashes? Your life is going to be much more volatile if you're putting everything you have into your work and you're not spending any time with family and friends. You're not, picking up hobbies or finding fun vacations to go on, because when work's not going well, life's not going well, and everything is going to become affected by it. So yeah, try to find those hobbies. Just know that how important it is. And for me, it was actually, as funny as it is, and I feel like it's lame saying it, but it was picking up softball. To me was the time I picked it up maybe 4 or 5 years ago. I grew up playing baseball, and for me, it was like, it was so much fun because I wasn't trying to achieve something. I wasn't trying to, get a certain amount of followers or build a certain amount of growth in my business. It was never about the bottom line or about the outcome. It was about meeting new people, having fun, playing a game, having that teamwork and camaraderie. It was just so much fun and so enjoyable that it made me realize that, maybe I was spending a little bit too much time on work, not enough time on hobbies and other interests. So got to make the commitment and just go for it. And we've got a question from Veronica. I think it's this one.
Hi Matt, it's Veronica here. Greetings from Poland. I wanted to say that I'm a huge fan of your podcast and of course the video stuff you're making. For example, that's a fun fact, my friends used to laugh a lot hearing that the first thing I watched on Netflix was the Minimalism documentary. But anyways, on to the question. Have you ever considered taking another path than filmmaking back to the, high school times? And if not, do you have something you would like to try? Some not so rational, kinda strange dream job? Okay, I guess that's it. Good luck with your work and of course with your great plan of inviting The Rock to your podcast. I wish you the best. Goodbye.
All right, Veronica, thank you for your question and your support on trying to get The Rock on my podcast. It's a good point to talk about it. You guys know this if you've been listening to the podcast, if you've listened to more than 2 episodes. I have this crazy ambitious goal to get Dwayne The Rock Johnson on my podcast, and I will go to any lengths to make it happen. I recently just finished watching every single one of his movies. That's 30 feature films. I binge watched them over a couple months. I am training to to take one day and eat The Rock's diet that he was training for during his movie Hercules, which is like, I think it's like 11, 12 pounds of food in a day. We'll see if I can do that. But anyway, I'm trying to get him on the podcast just for so many reasons that I won't get into, but I find him incredibly inspiring, and I think that he would be able to add a lot of value to the show. So if you guys want to see The Rock on my podcast, after like I've been doing this for a year trying to get him on, hasn't returned my phone calls, but I've been doing it for a year and it just never stops being funny. Just this idea of me trying to get The Rock on my podcast, because my podcast isn't that popular, you know? It's not like it's the Tonight Show. It's not even close. It's not even close. It's not even like the audience of the live show of the Tonight Show. But maybe that. But anyway, if you want to help get The Rock on my podcast, go to gettherockonmattspodcast.com. Very easy to remember, very short and pithy email. gettherockonmattspodcast.com. There's a big, gigantic tweet button that if you click the button, it'll automatically generate a tweet and send it to The Rock. So that's the best that I've got so far. I'm just trying to come up with these creative ideas to get his attention. But anyway, Veronica, to get back to your original question, is have you ever had any dreams or big ambitions to have another career? And truth be told, growing up, I wanted to be a professional baseball player. That was my dream. And literally even through high school, I thought that I might be able to make it happen. I wasn't that good. I wasn't that good in hindsight, but I was just always so passionate about baseball. I watched every Yankees game. So, maybe there's something there. Maybe I could that would be cool, right? That would be a cool dream to be able to throw out the first pitch in a Yankees game. I think I'm going to have to put that on my bucket list. I think I might have to do that. That would be amazing. David Vang. What's up, David? What do we got to say here? Hi, Matt. I noticed that you keep your wardrobe very simple. Can you elaborate on what items you have? Also, I'm working on decluttering and simplifying my closet and wardrobe. What key tricks do you have? Much appreciated, David. So at this point, I recorded this a little bit early, but at this point, last Friday, I would have released a video called My Minimalist Wardrobe. If all goes according to plan and nothing got in the way of me making that video. But the whole idea around it is just kind of going through my wardrobe and talking about what I own. The tricks that I've learned is I've got one pair of good pants, one pair of jeans that I wear pretty much every day. I have about more than 20 pairs of the same shirt. This shirt, I've got it in this color as well. If you're listening to the podcast, it's like a dark charcoal and then a gray. And I've got, half and half. And that's the only t-shirt that I wear 99% of the time. If I go out to a fancy dinner with Natalie or just I want to dress up for something, I got 2 or 3 button-ups that I will for that. So I keep things very simple. I find a brand or a company that fits me well. Fit is so important, and comfort. And then that's all I do. That's all I get. So if I need to get more shirts, or if my shirts wear out, or I get like some gross sweat stains on them, which happens, then I'll just kind of get the same one that I got before. So that's the trick that I have to keeping it simple. Also, not giving a shit what people think about what you're wearing. If you're happy with it, if you feel comfortable in it, then, wear a panda onesie. I don't care. Anise Costa. I hope you've never talked about this, but I only started to watch your videos a few days ago. I would like to know if you have any tips for people who are living with their parents but would like to be minimalist. I'm only 16 years old, so I'm still dependent on my parents. However, I want to be a minimalist even if I can't in all aspects of my life. Hope you choose this question. I find myself learning something new in every video you post. Congrats on your work. I am Portuguese. So Anise from Portugal. Thank you so much. I started out as a minimalist living with my parents as well. I was independent at the time. Well, I guess I wasn't independent if I was living in my parents' basement, but I was making money for myself, and I had a career in the works. So the advice that I would say is, the good thing is that, like, if you wanted to be a maximalist, if you wanted to own a bunch of shit or like have this crazy ambitious lifestyle, that would be much harder if you were dependent, because then you'd be asking your parents for $20 every time you went to the mall. But since you're talking about a life with less and being more intentional with the things you own, you can get rid of some stuff that you don't like and you don't have, and you can be more mindful. And your bedroom is yours to add or remove stuff as you see fit. I think for the most part, unless your parents are like really controlling, but yeah, I think that there's a lot there. Jack's got a question. Jack Bello, that is. Hi, Matt. Sorry for my bad English. I'm an Italian guy. Me too. I'm Olive Garden Italian, though. I'm not like Italian. So he probably makes better pasta than me. I found your YouTube channel only a week ago, and I am just in love. I find your content very inspiring. It's now a year that I found the name of what I felt inside of me, minimalism. I'm still in the process of embracing it. So my question is, what's your bare items that you can't live without? Like a minimalist list. Thanks for the opportunity. Keep going. Your marvelous work. Thanks. Giacomo. Okay, Jack. What do I got for you? Okay, I got items that I can't live without. My glasses. I'm not like I can see without my glasses, but I can't drive without them. It's just very hard to see in the distance. But I remember the first time that I put on my glasses. This was probably 3 years ago. And I was on my rooftop at the time in Hoboken and saw a view of Manhattan. And it was unbelievable. It was like those I don't know. I don't want to trivialize it, but you ever see those like audio things where people hear for the first time? It's not the same at all. They're like crying and stuff. But in a way, I got very emotional because I was like, wow, like I didn't even realize it, but like I haven't been seeing in full resolution for I don't know how long, for probably years. It just kind of crept up on me. That was really special. And then other things I can't live without: a camera. That's how I live, and that's how I fulfill my passion. So, obviously there's like 1,000 different accessories that come with cameras, but I would just boil it down to a camera. And headphones are pretty important to me as well. It's kind of like my escape. When I put on headphones, I can get to work, or I can be on a flight and ignore the loud babies crying. Question from Ben Riddle. We're almost done here. We got a couple more questions left. Hi, Matt. A twist on your question for your guests. It's the end of the world imminently. What do you listen to? What do you watch? What do you read? I have this question on the podcast that I always ask my guests, which is, what one thing should people read, watch, or listen to before they go to bed tonight? So for me, I mean, it's kind of tough. It's like the world's coming to an end. It's like, doesn't matter, does it? But I'll entertain this question, Ben. One thing to watch: The Greatest Speech Ever Made. It's a Charlie Chaplin like YouTube video. It's based on one of his films, a speech that he made in the film. It's just so beautiful, so poetic, and I always get inspired when I watch it. So I'd watch that. If I had to read one thing, it would be a crime novel by Michael Connelly. I don't read a ton, but ever since college, I would occasionally read these Michael Connelly, novels, and I don't know, they just helps me to kind of escape. And I think if the world was ending imminently, I would want to escape into a good book. And if I could listen to one thing, it would be Frank Sinatra's "Come Fly Away." I'm a Jersey boy, so, you got to represent Frank Sinatra. I used to live right around the corner from where he was born in Hoboken. I don't listen to Frank Sinatra all the time, but like that would be such a dope song to go out on. Like if there's meteors crashing down to Earth and exploding in cities all around the world, and then you have like Frank Sinatra's "Come Fly Away." I feel like that would be the way to do it. Oh, he's got one more question here. If you could do a show where you had 4 guests on at the same time, like a talk show, I suppose, who would your top 4 be? The Rock can't be an option. Well, you're really strong-arming me there, Ben, from the UK. I can't have The Rock on. I would have picked The Rock 4 times. No, but I don't know. It's kind of hard because like I'm not really. I can't like I'm not. I don't know. I can't really think of like 4 people. I can't think of 4 people that would be more fun and more enjoyable for me to do a podcast episode with than it would be with my close friends from back home. So that's what I would go with, because there's nothing like those friends that you grew up with, that you're tight with, that I feel like your personalities have been molded around, and you guys helped. We're in the, those really early stages of life when you're developing and learning about the world in high school and college. To be able to sit down with 3 or 4 close friends, I feel like would be, for me, the most enjoyable. I wouldn't enjoy it as much as like bringing on a celebrity or stars or whatever, because I don't know. First of all, I'd just be nervous. If you had Kanye West in my apartment, like that would be cool, but I would be uncomfortable. So if I really wanted to enjoy myself and I think would have the most fun conversation, that's what I would go with. That's lame, right? That's a lame answer to that question. I would choose my friends. Whatever. Alicia, we got a video here.
Hi, Matt. This is Alicia. First of all, thank you so much for responding to me on Instagram. I really appreciate it. Let's try and hold my phone still. But yeah, I want to get right into it. So basically, a question that I have for you is just what advice would you give to someone like me who feels like they have a really, really good idea for a documentary and thinking about actually bringing it to fruition is like, I know that I could do it by myself, but I really want it to be as best as it possibly can be. And I really think that my idea is worth something that would have a larger platform than what I could solely provide by myself. So like, I would love to know even more in depth about like your journey, if you were to talk about that on your show, like how you started making films and doing things. And I've listened to about 2 of your episodes. But just how you kind of got to where you are now, and that was making the Minimalism documentary, and it was on Netflix, and kind of like how all of that transpired and fell into place for you. That documentary actually inspired the idea that I have for a documentary that I would love to make one day. But I would love to just kind of hear some advice on that and like what you would recommend and what you maybe wish someone would have told you when you started making your documentary that's on Netflix now. So I'm at 2 minutes. I'm going to stop talking. Thank you. Bye.
All right. There was a lot in that question. And I think the first thing I'll say is don't get too far ahead of yourself, right? Like, thinking about Netflix and distribution and where should it go and how did we get on there and all this stuff. It's going to be different for everybody. I've heard from so many people who've gotten a film on Netflix or, released it independently, and they all took a little bit different paths, found different connections, had a distribution company that helped them. But that's not going to help you at the very beginning. Right now, you're about to make a film, or you have this idea for a film. Thinking about Netflix is going to be the worst thing for you to do, and it's going to kind of corrupt your vision and exactly what you want to create. Because what's most important is to make the dopest thing you possibly can, a great film, to make a great piece of art, something that you are inspired by, that you are passionate about, that you can share with, like, that other people will also get value from. That's step number 1. Because if you can't do that, then it doesn't matter. Like, if it's not good enough, if the piece of content is not good enough, if the film is not good enough, then you're not going to be able to get on Netflix, and it's probably not going to help people. So step number 1, make dope shit. I think it's hard. Like, you talk about getting a crew and finding a director and all these different things. Like, you have an idea. it's never just about the idea. The idea sometimes is like the most least important thing. I know ideas are important, obviously, but if you can't act on that idea, if you can't bring it to life, if you can't find a way to make it work, then obviously the idea doesn't exist. It doesn't really matter. So the execution is just as important. And the one thing that I found for me that's helped is that I was able to execute on everything myself. So Josh came to me with this idea for the documentary. It happened to be something that I had been toiling and thinking about. I knew I wanted to make a feature doc. Minimalism had impacted me. I actually had thought about doing something similar. So when he came to me, I was like, let's do it. That's great. I could shoot, I could edit, I could record audio, I could do conduct the interviews. I could do all this stuff myself because I've been working over all these years to make it happen. Try not to go too big. You don't need a whole crew. I did minimalism entirely by myself. So you might actually just find one person that's a great filmmaker that you can team up with to create something. So it's not always completely necessary that you have this big production to make something great, to make something meaningful. You just have to be really creative. The film that I like to talk about and share people, because it actually happened in a different way than me. Like that was my path, is having the skill and executing and just going for it and making it all myself, having years and years of experience as a filmmaker, not a doc filmmaker, but just a filmmaker. And it's the guys who made Living on $1. Chris Temple and Zach Ingrassi, I had them on the podcast. They're great people. They're super inspiring. But they basically were in college and they had this idea to go down to Guatemala, shoot some footage, and see what it would be like to live on less than $1 a day. So they had this documentary called Living on $1. And it ended up being, they ended up getting it on Netflix. They turned in all this footage into a documentary, and they ended up getting on Netflix. But they weren't filmmakers. They had no business. I'm not gonna say they had no business, but that wasn't their craft. That wasn't their art. They had a couple friends and people that they knew go down there with them and help them to shoot all this stuff and help them edit it. But they were able to make it work because they had this idea. And then they were able to execute on it, to bring in these people who had the skills to make it happen. So for you, it's going to be probably finding the right partnerships, the right people to make this thing happen. Don't worry about starting small. Maybe it's a short film to start. Maybe you create 5 minutes of whatever this idea is. Because I think if you can't create a 5-minute film, something that moves people, that gets people to think about your concept and your idea pretty deep, it's probably not going to be a great idea to go out and try to make a 75-minute film about that. So you make this short thing first. You can use that to help get interviews or maybe inspire other people to be a part of the project, and then you can build from there. Start small, and then eventually you can get to that point where you make the feature doc and go big. Thank you for your question. Thank you guys for, again, being a part of this podcast. I appreciate your support, your help, and your encouragement along the way. Hearing from you is just one of the greatest gifts of creating this podcast, and to be able to answer some of your questions here. It means a lot to me that you would trust me and trust my advice, and I hope I was able to give you a few pointers here. If you want to support the show, as you know, I don't do advertising, but you can leave a review on iTunes, leave a rating over on iTunes. That helps. If you want to share one of these podcast episodes with a friend, that would help. And if you want to submit a question, submit your video or audio, keep it under 2 minutes, send it to hello@mattdiavella.com, and I will get you and your voice on the podcast. All right, guys, thanks so much for being a part of this, and we will see you next week. I feel like I should have said, I will see you next week. But I'm not going to see you next week. Wait, I feel like... Wait, hold on a second. Wait, I'm back. I made the whole big deal about a stink about the workout routine question. I must have missed that along the way somewhere. Where is it? Work out. Yeah, I missed it. I missed the question. I probably missed other ones too. Sorry if I missed your question. I'm so unorganized right now. But I made this whole stink and this whole joke about the workout routine in the beginning. And I didn't even answer that question. I did talk a little bit about working out, but I have a question here from David McMullen. He said, question, as a minimalist, what does your exercise regime look like? Are you a member at a gym or maybe CrossFit? Do you exercise at home? How do you maintain it when you're on the road? Cheers, David. To answer that question, I would say, so my workout routine right now is I lift usually 4 to 6 days a week. Sometimes I might only spend 15 to 20 minutes at the gym. Sometimes I'll spend an hour or so. I will occasionally hike. So when I get into the hiking, I'll do that 3 times, maybe more per week, which is usually a couple miles per hike. And that's how I stay in shape. I think like the hardest thing is really building that routine in the beginning, but then once you've got it built, it kind of takes care of itself. I find it harder to not go to the gym once I've built the routine. So that's kind of like the most contradictory advice that I give is that like if you're trying to build a workout routine, a lot of people tell you how important it is to rest and have those rest days. I kind of power through those in the beginning for the first couple weeks because I know if I just go to the gym more frequently, once it sticks, then I can take a day off here and there, but I want to be able to kind of develop that. And also, like I've talked about this on the podcast before, but my one tip is always I don't let myself skip 2 days in a row. So I'll only take 1 day off and then, you can go every other day, but generally if I take 2 days off, I'm less likely to get back into that routine and get going. And when I'm on the road, to answer that question, I let myself not work out. I don't really stress about it. I don't work out much when I'm on the road. Sometimes I do, but I would say 90% of the time, I do not work out from the road. So I take that break, and then when I come back, I get back into my routine. And that's just, that's how I do things. So yeah, that's it. Last question. I'm done. I'm out of here. See you guys next week. Bye.